So I'm going to do a video on this simply because it made me extremely angry to watch Dr. Peterson and Dawkins in this conversation. I think the one in the middle is called O'Connor. And the reason why it made me really angry wasn't so much that arrogant people are going to be arrogant. They're going to exude themselves to be their own gods. And they're going to make sure to stomp anything that's not as what they believe to be as knowledgeable or superior in knowledge to them into the ground, because that's their whole job. They need to keep their ego up because they're a walking ego. And part of what makes me angry isn't so much that somebody doesn't believe something. It's a belief and an idea and a leap of faith. You do have to have the Holy Spirit to be brought to certain types of conclusions. I will come to that. But as of right now, I'm talking about just the way that this conversation happened. There is a mutual respect and kind of a spirit of honesty and an openness that I think was completely shut down. I feel like O'Connor joined in because O'Connor, I'm pretty sure, because I saw him talking to other people, is an atheist. So to see them both be so obvious about being worldly people in a place that's going to be aborted, and they're like, and guess what? We're going to be aborted too, and we're extremely proud of it type attitude. It's like, you don't understand. They don't understand the position they take, and it's like, forgive them for they know not what they do. That's fine, but the fact that they did it they could have done it to anybody else and I wouldn't have honestly cared. But to Dr. Peterson, this is somebody who the government in Canada, his peers, the places he worked, the people he taught, have all looked their nose down at them, and they were all arrogant and thought they knew, but they knew nothing. And anytime Christians have to come to the table, which is not what, Peterson's even bringing. And that's the thing. Like, if they feel this strongly about somebody who's like not even trying to be like, you should be saved, and don't you know you'll be aborted with this world, and Jesus is king. That's not what he's bringing. He's bringing a very sincere, open heart, to the table, saying, listen, I don't know, but I know that what it equals happens to be a really important formula for society, and Dawkins should know because he lives in a society that's not becoming Christian. He did an interview saying, well, I really wish Christianity would stay around, but allow me to stomp it into the ground and not do the math. It's like, you can't stomp the thing that's growing into the ground and growing well and then be surprised there's dead things behind. But he wants to be the king of the ashes because he has an ego. Egos don't do the math. Okay? And the fact that he did that to Peterson, who's just a person, who's Dr. Peterson, who's trying to be sincere and say, there are some scientific things here I don't understand. And by the way, if you believe in God, you don't have to. You just have to know the maths. And I'm sure Dr. Peterson looking at people he does respect and who he knows are knowledgeable people and they're well respected. He too is. I just think he should be given respect. They know he is not a hardcore Christian. He is not. He's just somebody who's saying, hey, I'm noticing this makes sense. Do you guys notice this makes sense? And they're like, oh, but do you really believe this? Can you really believe that? How about we talk about the virgin void that was this universe before an amazing big bang occurred where nothing existed? What about that? Isn't that a virgin void? Think about God's perspective. The whole Old Testament it's screaming what God's perspective is. If he's telling you the bloodline and the names of every single person in the Bible because he wants you to trace all the way from Jesus back to David, through David to Adam, if that matters, if bloodline and DNA matters, there's a scientific thing that we just discovered recently, that if a woman has sex, the DNA of the man stays in her system. If she had this is so, it's very sacrilegious even to speak of it. But let's talk about the math of God. He knew DNA of men stay in the woman's body. He knew that. You want to know why? Because he created people. Because his thoughts are greater than our thoughts. His ways are greater than our ways. And the fact that we have to discuss people, the same people who are probably pro-abortion, want to sit here and talk about the womb of Mary and why it was blessed and why we can't even believe it. Yeah, it's freaking unbelievable. The fact that you can sit in a chair and a reality that God has made, knowing you from the foundation of the earth, knowing way more than you could ever know, and have the audacity to look at somebody who doesn't even believe the whole story and put them down like the bully that you are, is outrageous. Try not to get upset about it. Try not to get upset about it. I'm really not. But I understand the crushing comes. People see that and they see the serpents for what they are. And they hear the hissing and they go, oh, I recognize that. And that's fine, because we need to see the serpents. We need to know who they are and how they act. And you can see how gleeful and how happy Dawkins is. His body language is saying, I am stomping you because there's a reality here you cannot explain. If Mary had DNA in her system, this whole Old Testament thing that God was doing, making sure the DNA was perfect, making sure the right people were actually giving birth to the people that were meant to be, so that the bloodline of Christ could have Gentiles. And that's why the sin of Owen is so egregious, because he was chosen to be in a bloodline, and he was chosen to continue a bloodline, and he said no. There's something behind that. So why would Mary be allowed to have another person's bloodline or any kind of DNA in her system, in the lining of her endometrium, if it has to be a clean slate? God is trying to do something with that. Just like when the universe was created, nobody heard it, nobody saw it, but he just believes it happened. How can you believe in a virgin void and the fact that you exist, but you can't believe in a virgin womb and the fact Jesus exists? You want to know why? Because you think yourself God. That's why. That's why. Because you're the God. Anyway, I didn't want to be upset because my words are a little bit more saltier. I had a recording, but I could hear myself I was cussing in the background. So I'm not bragging about that. I'm just saying I just had a moment where I get really upset, not about people's disbelief. I get it. But I don't like it when I see people who have been put into a trap. I feel like this was a den of lions. And I don't think it's fair for somebody who's done a lot for a society of men who didn't know where they were going, and people who questioned their faith. And Peterson simply saying, as an intellectual, honestly, I see that this makes sense. Healthy society comes from this, which is Christianity. Everything else is sinking sand. And that really bothers people like Dawkins. You want to know why? Because when he says the word facts and truth, he means him and what he thinks and believes and what he can confirm. But he can't confirm, believe, or observe the big bang. But he does. He can't really confirm it, but he believes it. You want to know why? Because he's here. And there can be, virgin voids. And he can exist. This is Linda of Christ is King forever. May God be with you.